In 1981 or 82, Walter Parkes and Larry Lasker were writing a script that became War Games. And you should talk to them about this, because there was an interesting moment at which they learned about the existence of sneakers and where they first heard the word sneakers.
Larry and I had, during the research for War Games, had heard about sneakers as being the kid programmers at IBM, as opposed to the brown shoes, they're the sneakers. And I remember we were at a computer convention in Chicago, right around the time we were making War Games, and we found an editor of some obscure little engineering magazine and asked him, were there any sneakers around?
And he got very kind of hush-hush and looked around and he said, yes, I have. He said, how do you know about them? And I said, well, we've heard, and I knew he was talking about something different. And he said, they're also called black hatters. They exist in the black world. And I said, what's the black world? And he says, the world in which no information comes out, only goes in. I said, oh, okay, tell me more about this.
He described sneakers as these peoples, these teams, often described as black hatters. I'll wear the black hat, you wear the white hat, or tiger teams that are hired to break into the installation teams that are hired to break into top-secret installations. They might be military, government, private in terms of banks. And he described them as the subculture made up of computer hackers, ex-criminals, security experts, telephone freaks who would band together in teams and use their disparate abilities to break into places. And it just sounded like a natural for a modern caper movie.
So people hire you to break into their places to make sure no one can break into their places?
It's a living.
Not a very good one.
Walter and Larry and I started the script in 1982, and we were making changes on it all the way through production, and in fact a few changes in post-production. So it's been really 10 years, or 30 man years, as we sometimes embarrassedly recall.
And over the course of the years, we just passed the draft back and forth, generating draft after draft, always trying to chase down the story and the characters within the concept, High concepts sell very easily, but good movies are really about characters and story.
Just give me the box, Marty.
I thought you couldn't kill your friend, Cos.
I missed on purpose. Now give me the box.
Take the goddamn thing. I don't want it. You win, I lose. That's what you want, isn't it? Say it. Say it.
Yes!
Originally, you guys had the idea for the movie.
Yeah.
And you hired me to write it. And we met every day for 9 months and basically just had lunch and talked about weird stuff.
That's right. Then you went off to do all of me.
That's right.
And we wrote it.
Is that true?
Yeah.
You flew the coop before writing a word.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
I
then,
was a dummy.
And then we kind of did this abbreviated version because we had to go off to...
Abbreviated version where he says we figured out 2 acts of it and then kind of stopped.
It stops on page 115 with Bishop is now in the biggest trouble he's ever been in, and the last line is good luck, which is sort of emblematic of what they did to me. It was like, well, here. Why didn't you write it? I always wanted to ask you that. Why didn't you guys write it?
We were working on Aaliyah. We already had a deal to write.
Right. Yeah. Something else we didn't finish.
And then we sort of did a switch.
You're absolutely right.
We folded the Aaliyah deal into
Sneakers.
Did we try to get you to write Aaliyah?
No. You tried to get me to write Sneakers.
Yeah, which you wouldn't do.
We literally, every day for 9 months, we would meet at your office at Fox, and we would sit there and we went through, I remember we spent months on a space-based laser anti-missile defense system. We thought that's what the movie was going to be about.
I remember, though, when we were wrestling it on our 84 pages, we'd get into plot holes, and my wife, Lori, would come and have lunch with us. And we still laugh. Lori and I laugh about it because Larry and I would get Lori and say, okay, so fine. He stole the thing for the wrong people, and everyone's after him. Why doesn't he go to the FBI? Why doesn't he just go to the FBI and give himself in? Lori's going, I don't know. I didn't write this. What are you getting mad at me for?
Well, what would happen is we would get into holes like that. We'd be, at any given time, 2 of us would be agreeing, and one would, and it was never the same 2.
Right.
It was always one guy who would say, what if, and he said, what if they invent a new color? Yeah, let's invest. And we'd spend weeks at the library looking up colors and things. It was the most frustrating experience of my life. It was fun.
True. And we also really, as Larry said, it became a pretext just to hang out.
There is actually, I wonder if I can find it. There's a great thing. When we started writing, Bishop was always our age. In fact, all through the writing of the script, Bishop was always our age. And so he started off, he was like 30.
Yeah.
And in the early drafts, it's when we introduce the character of Kreese, it says, he's the old one, he's 42. We were all 42 when we finally made this movie.
I know. So what was the key? When did we finally get a script that
Here's what happened. This stuff, this is all 1985, this pile here, these piles here. In 1987 is this pile, which is at Paramount. Yeah, this is at Paramount.
Yeah.
There's an 86 pile here somewhere. And then it sat for a couple of years.
That's right.
Until we took it to Universal in 91. And Universal loved the project, and we all said, yeah, let's just dust it off again. In the interim, though, we once counted how many movies we had all gotten made.
That's right.
It was like a dozen movies,
Yeah.
as writers or directors or producers or whatever.
That's right.
In the interim,
That's right.
while this thing was just defoliating forests. But Universal loved it and said, do what you need to do to the script and let's make the movie, which stunned us. We didn't actually think it could get made.
Yeah.
At that point, I thought it was just like this would be the thing that follows us the rest of our lives.
Let's be honest. There was something that has something to do with it in Field of Dreams.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got tricked into directing this movie.
Yes.
All the years we were working on this. No, it's not. It's absolutely true. All the years we were working on this, I would say, this is not for me to direct because I think there are guys who do this sort of thing really well, and I didn't think this is my cup of tea. And one day we were at Universal, and I was saying, I'm not directing it, and you said to me, do you remember this?
I think so.
Yeah, this was so slick. You said, okay, I understand that you don't want to direct it, but if you were, under what narrow set of circumstances would you direct it? And like an idiot, I answered the question, and the studio met them.
After this tortuous but fun development process, the picture actually came together quickly once you decided to do it and Universal decided to do it, and it had to do with Redford coming aboard.
Yes, once Redford signed up, the casting was kind of...
It was very fast.
We had our pick of wonderful actors.
And the reputation had always been, you go to Bob Redford and he'll talk about it for months and months. He'll never really commit to it. But it was like a relatively quick thing.
And then there was still more writing. We did a lot of writing in the year that we were sort of prepping and shooting. And it was one of the great things is that no matter what an actor could say, what if my character did this? I'd say, you know what, we tried that, and it didn't work.
But ultimately, it did take on meaning, particularly
ultimately, you're right.
Yeah.
Really,
you have real flesh and blood
the thrust
actors.
of this is we wanted to make an exciting movie for us. You guys sent me off on a research trip to San Francisco.
That's right, John Draper.
Where I met Captain Crunch, and I met a guy, Bob Abbott, I think his name was, who was the model for Kreese. He was a very distinguished African-American man who worked for, as he said to me, 3-letter companies. And I said, IBM? Yes. AT&T? Yes. CIA? It was very mysterious. And he introduced me to a guy. He says, I can't tell you this man's name, but he's the best at, breaking computer code and things. And I met this guy, a very nice guy. He said, we'll call him John. I said, okay, fine. Very cloak and dagger sort of people. And then we came down here, and you found the guy who was the Whistler character, the blind computer cracker.
Yeah, who can read code in real time.
Right.
And then who's the mathematician with
Len
Edelman.
Yeah.
This was great. Because the movie, we discovered at some point that unbreakable codes is sort of what the movie would be about. And you found this mathematician at USC.
Yeah, he's the the A in RSA.
Right. Who had made the unbreakable code, and was very helpful. And he actually wrote the speech that Janek gives at the lecture, when Janek is up there talking about cyclomatic cells and...
That's right, you gave me that assignment to get me off your back.
Which, by the way, someday I'm hoping you'll turn in.
While the number field sieve is the best method currently known, there exists an intriguing possibility for a far more elegant approach. Here we would find a constellation of extensions, each abelian over the rationals, and hence contained in a single cyclotomic field. Using the art and map, we might induce homomorphisms from the
So
principle.
Larry comes and he says that there's going to be a scene. It's going to be a mathematics professor, and he's going to be talking about cryptography. Actually, he's going to be talking about number theory, pure number theory, but it's going to have implications for cryptography, breaking codes. And so he says he wants it to be very authentic, and would I make the slides? And in addition, would I write some dialogue for the professor to be saying? In terms of the slides, I thought about it, and I thought about it fairly hard. And I went home and I got my Mac out, and I made these gorgeous slides, really pretty stuff, you know. And it took me like 2-3 days to do it, because graphics programs in the mid-'80s were not as good as they are now. It took a long time. So I make these gorgeous slides and I give them to Larry. And as part of our Redford agreement, it's arranged that Lori, my wife, and I will go out when the scene is being shot. She'll meet Redford, we'll watch the scene. So I get there, and they're setting up the scene, and there are my slides being projected on the wall, except they're not my slides. What's happened is they're now handwritten in, sort of grease pen. And I say to Larry, what happened to my slides? And he said, no, we thought it'd be more realistic if it was drawn by hand, because that's what mathematicians do. And of course, that is what mathematicians do, but if you just told me that, I could have done it in a half hour instead of spending days, making this gorgeous thing.
This isn't just about large number theory, it's about cryptography.
Huh?
You mean codes?
I mean unbreakable code.
Well, the characters derive from the research that we did on the project. I mean, the famous phone phreaker Captain Crunch, John Draper, called Captain Crunch because he discovered that the whistle inside the Captain Crunch cereal was a perfect A440 or whatever pitch, which the telephone computers would mistake as a signal to let you onto a trunk line, therefore giving you free access to phone calls around the world.
The Captain Crunch came from a whistle in the Captain Crunch cereal box, which was figured out by this guy named Sid in Los Angeles. Sid was a person who discovered the whistle, and he discovered that the whistle was capable of emitting a tone that is used by the phone company to disconnect long-distance calls. All it does is issue a disconnect signal. It really couldn't make a free call with a whistle, but you could in certain circumstances. In some very, very old exchanges, if you blew the whistle 3 times in rapid succession, toot, 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 like that, then you would dial the digit 3. And so you could actually dial numbers by blowing the whistle with a long burst, first of all, to clear the line, and then burst it with pulses to actually dial a number. Those only worked on very, very old step-by-step exchanges that were controlled by tones. Since that time, they've converted all those equipment over to multi-frequency tones. And the multi-frequency tones are what the blue boxes sound when you make a call. And these are the internal switching tones, and they're not the same as the touch tones you would normally use on today's modern phones. They're a totally different set of tones.
John Draper, who was known as Captain Crunch, who the government threw in prison for his pioneering efforts in the field of blue boxes and telephones and free phone calls. And when he was in prison, the mafia got a hold of him, and actually, they beat him up. They knocked some teeth out because he wouldn't tell them some of his more precious secrets.
The story essentially was that I was incarcerated in jail, and while I was in jail, I was exposed to the criminal element in jail, and talked quite a bit extensively about my activities to the other prisoners in jail, as what normal people would do when they're in jail. So I did a lot of information exchange and told quite a few, gave out quite a bit of information about how to do things. And it was made very clear that if I didn't do that, that my life in jail would be very uncomfortable.
Anyway, they arranged for me to get an early release from my unfortunate incarceration, and I begin to perform a variety of services. For starters, I reorganized their entire financial operation. Budgets, payroll, money laundering, you name it. And the whole network is protected by a very powerful encryption system, so the government cannot read it.
In the world of security experts, a clean record is a must. That because the people who employ teams like this are the defense industry, the high-tech industry, the government, the intelligence community, and obviously they want people who've been on the right side of the law. Our characters have all had various brushes with the past, which is why they don't get the good jobs. Robert Redford's character actually had to change his name and go underground because of some activities that he was involved with in the 60s.
You sometimes make a mistake, and if you're not lucky, it can change your entire life. And that's what happened to Marty Bishop. He's been paying for a very simple little mistake that any number of people of his generation might have made, and probably did.
Bishop is running from this incident that occurred decades ago and has been forced to continue to run away from who he really is.
He's a transitional character, meaning that he got involved with this technology when he was young and impressionable and somewhat on top of it, and he was on the vanguard of that particular technology, computers, and among the first ones that learned how to maneuver computers into other areas than, into shady areas, but mostly as a prank. Strategic mind, got caught, had to go underground, lived underground for many years, and now really wants a life.
And when we pick up with him 25 years later, he is a man with only half of his past intact.
The terms that are used in the security business, such as the word security, has this like reflection in terms of personal relationships. And I think there's a lot of reflection of who these characters are in what they do. I think there's a lot of sense that these are characters who've been kept out of places, and therefore they feel compelled to break into places. In terms of trust, certainly starting with Marty Bishop, just as a practical matter, he's been on the run for now, 20 years, over 20 years. He's living under an assumed name. He has totally cut himself off from his past. So therefore, he feels that he cannot trust even his closest friend with his secrets. Of course, what he encounters is both a story and a device that is all about the unlocking of secrets. And there's a parallel in terms of the external unlocking of secrets technologically and the ultimate shedding light on the secrets of the characters of the movie.
All right. What do we need?
And just as anybody who's been in athletics, in a sports team, or in the military, or any sort of group endeavor knows, you need your teammates, and at a certain point your personal feelings don't really matter. You come to rely upon them and have a bond with them that's in some ways greater than friendship.
Looking into the people who tended to be sneakers, often we would find that people with disabilities would have particular strengths in terms of what a team like this would need. And in fact, there is a well-known sneaker who is involved in blind penetrations, who is involved in these sorts of penetrations, who is in fact blind.
Whistler is the guy who really, by virtue of being blind, knows how to maneuver through the invisible world that electronics really is, and that our world is shaped by. And so when you have this new piece of equipment that nobody quite knows what it is, he's the one who says, hook it up to the diagnostics, I'll figure this thing out. And he has a braille readout to his computer. It's a little keypad that you just rest your fingers on, and the braille characters are created electronically underneath it to match what's happening on the computer screen. So he can see through his fingers what other people are seeing on the computer screen.
Give me another one. Stay in that quadrant.
Whistler is our kind of homage, amalgam to the phone freakers of yore. Whistler is blind, and he is blessed with not only a sensitive hearing, but a kind of sensitivity to the underlying truth of a situation. He's the most intuitive of the sneakers.
He is based loosely, I think, on a guy who made who snuck the phone company by creating, when touch tone stuff first came out, he was such a wizard at audio stuff that he made a box that could duplicate the touch tones and made fraudulent calls for a bunch of time. And then he went to the company and said, well, look, here, this is what I came up with. You guys better be aware of this. And they threw him in the slammer and took his stuff away.
5 seconds.
Yes, I can guarantee your safety.
Bish, he's lying. Hang up, they've almost got us. He's lying. Hang up, Bish. He's lying, Hang up.
One of the very first concepts in our earliest story meetings was the idea of, well, where is this place that the sneakers do their business out of? And, well, it's kind of like a clubhouse. It's like a clubhouse for guys who refuse to grow up, for outgrown adolescents. And it was always, from the very first meetings, described as the sneakers lair, which kind of translated into a moment where Liz says, I'm sure you guys have a secret handshake, too.
The biggest thing that I notice is just that there's no women on the set day to day, no other actresses. And that's a little lonely at times. It's a very male world I'm in the middle of. But it's a very male world that Liz, my character, enters, so it's the same dilemma, it's the same joy, and it's the same oddness.
Now, this guy's giving a lecture tomorrow at UC in the afternoon. I'm going to be there and check him out, okay? Any questions? Okay, let's do it.
For the lecture, you want to take Whistler, or do you want me to go with you?
No, that's okay. I thought I'd ask Liz.
Liz, who's played by Mary McDonnell, used to be linked romantically with Martin Bishop. They are, in many ways, ideally matched in that they're very bright, they're very funny, they're courageous, they like the give and take of a relationship, they banter very well, they keep each other off balance, which is what, in fact, they as individuals need.
Now, Bishop's being able to be a free man could mean a great deal to what she once had hoped for between them. And it's a little risky to hope. So I think she kind of backs into helping him out of a kind of human friendship.
She has a certain expertise in mathematics. She's very up on modern technology. She's now teaching music, which is obviously is related in many ways to the study of mathematics. She was always very helpful, and I think that Bishop always tried to get her more involved in the group than she wanted to be, and it was always part of the kind of banter between them. The other sneakers adored her, missed her every bit as much as Marty did after they broke up.
Carl?
I'd like to have a deep relationship with a beautiful woman who melts from the very first time her eyes meet.
We're not getting paid that much, Carl.
Well, you know, someone like Liz.
We're definitely not getting paid that much.
Uh-oh.
Hey!
River Phoenix plays Carl, who is a hyperactive young sneaker in training. Carl is someone that the sneakers discovered several years ago, one of their first jobs as a group. They were hired by the Oakland City School District to check the security of the Oakland City Schools computer systems, and while they were checking it, they found this 15-year-old kid breaking into the computers to change his grades.
I think Carl's the character that Phil Leary and I want to be. Carl is the only one of the sneakers that was born into a world where all this technology already existed. He didn't have to figure it out. He was just born with it.
You sure you know which one to cut? Yes. The alarm's always the green one.
Good, Carl.
Well, Carl is the youngest and obviously the newest at this form. And he takes his cues from the big guys. Bishop and Grease.
Carl, now!
He wants desperately to be a real grown-up sneaker, and consequently takes a lot of the jobs that the grown-ups don't want.
Carl, what the hell were you waiting for? That's not easy what I just did.
And he's very, very enthusiastic about his new job and wants to do well and is girl crazy.
The young lady with the Uzi, she single?
Along with Carl's technological sophistication and expertise, he's at his heart a romantic. I mean, the ironic thing about Carl is that more than a modem or a cool car or a guitar, he's really looking for a girlfriend.
You can have anything you want, and you're asking for my phone number. Yes.
Carl is excellent at just ferreting out information from public sources like, the local street directories or the, trust and deeds directory or county office of registrar, that type of thing.
It's fascinating what $50 can get you at the county recorder's office.
What do you got?
Platronics corporate headquarters, the complete blueprints.
Not bad. Not bad, Carl.
No, thanks.
Where'd you get the $50?
I took it from Mother's wallet.
Good.
And Mother's played by Dan Aykroyd, and he evolved through a number of different characterizations. There initially was a bit of the cowardly lion to Mother. And he was always an ex-hippie, aging hippie that, while he was kind of a big bear of a man, he has the hands of a surgeon.
He's the guy that if you need someone to crawl through the sewer and tap into a phone line, he does it. He doesn't like it, he complains about it, but he does it. He's good at it. He's slightly unkempt. He's not the neatest of people.
Oh, Mother.
Sorry, Liz. Standard procedure. Trash from the guy's house.
He's also a real product of the 60s, and he has carried with him a kind of paranoia that is actually quite refreshing in many ways. Is a total conspiracy buff.
We came up with this thing where I'm a conspiracy theorist. I believe all of the conspiracies that, that aliens came here in 1947 and crashed in the desert in Roswell, New Mexico, and a spaceship exists, and the last one died in 1974. That Kennedy was, yes, shot by the NSA, but not killed, and he's still alive. That that Aristotle and NASA's kept him alive in Greece.
If you want to talk about UFOs, if you want to talk about ghosts, if you want to talk about, government involvement in pasteurizing milk, I mean, you name it, and he's got a theory that will make you absolutely paranoid.
Did you know the Deputy Director of Planning was down in Managua, Nicaragua the day before the earthquake?
Now what are you saying? The CIA caused the Managua earthquake?
Well, I can't prove it, but... I'm actually doing my brother. My brother, he knows all of these conspiracy theories. You could sit him down and talk to him, and he believes every one. He believes that there's never been a photo taken of the North Pole that is totally cloud-free because there's a 1,400-mile opening in the North Pole going to the hollow Earth below, And I say, Peter, Al Gore's book has right on the cover, it's there. He says, no, that's CIA, composite, this kind of thing, and so he it doesn't matter what theory it is, he believes it, so I'm sort of doing him in the movies.
One of the fun things for me is watching this character, Mother, in close proximity with Sidney Poitier's Crease, who is the embodiment of the establishment, and how they rub up against each other is a lot of fun to watch.
The real aspect of the 60s that Mother carries with him is an absolute belief that there is a conspiracy behind everything. And this drives Crease crazy.
Now what are you saying? The NSA killed Kennedy?
No, they shot him, but they didn't kill him. He's still alive.
That's it. I've had it. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You just do your job. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Okay, fine. It was the same people who framed Pete Rose.
At one point or another, everybody on the team gets a little short-tempered with someone else on the team and criticizes them, but you really get a sense of family. Sidney Poitier plays Donald Crease, who is the backbone of the Sneakers. He's the guy who's been there. He was ex-CIA for 20-some-odd years. He was in the CIA. He knows the intelligence community. He knows those kinds of skills. He understands what security is really about. He's the one who, when he senses there's danger out there, he says, lock the doors, close the blinds, and he loads his gun.
What time is the handoff? 9 a.m.
Well, between now and then, we are going to institute some security around here.
Crease, in a lot of ways, is the father figure. He is the real expert. He's the man who has seen it on the front lines before. And when when things are getting tough, I think the other sneakers turn to Kreese for the answer.
There's a fire escape at the end of the north corridor. You'll have to break through a couple of firewalls.
Yeah, have him go south.
No, go directly
There's an air
north,
duct there. Get up in
directly
that-
north, about 30 yards. Once you're there, let me know.
What they do has to do a great deal with precision maneuvering, and he was trained for that. He strategized for most of the capers. He saw to it that they stayed within the context of the law as they existed.
Cryptography systems are based on mathematical problems so complex they cannot be solved without a key.
Janek must have figured out a way to solve those problems without the key, and he hardwired it into that chip.
Anybody want to crash a couple of passenger jets?
I said, turn it off. Turn it off.
Each character is so pure in this film. My character is pure me. Redford's is pure Bishop. Mary's is pure Liz. They're all so unique. The relationships in this film, the loyalties, the friendships, the loves, the jealousies, the hungers, the wit, the shared humor. It's the relationships in the film that give it the humanity.
I'm sorry, cuz. Could have shared this with me. I know. You could have had the power. I don't want it. Don't you know the places we can go with this? Yeah, I do. There's nobody there. Exactly.
Ben Kingsley had a great take on the character of Cosmo. He said to me, Bishop is Cosmo's emotional circuitry. He said, without Bishop, I'm dead. Cosmo is brilliant, he's visionary, he's pretty twisted by some of the experiences he's gone through, and has the world at his fingertips. He has all the power and the money and the abilities to affect the world that any one person could ever want. He wants Bishop at his side when he does this. There's a very powerful connection of it's more than male bonding. It is a kind of a there's a hollowness in him.
I don't expect other people to understand this, but I do expect you to understand this. We started this journey together. It wasn't a journey, cuz. It was a prank.
I think Cosmo is about playing in an electronic playground. I think Cosmo is about the exhilaration that I've even seen in some of these characters of being able to put your mark on the world with a computer and a modem. Being able to reach out and really affect the world. It's the hacker mentality times 1,000. I think that's what Cosmo is about.
The world isn't run by weapons anymore, or energy, or money. It's run by little ones and zeros, little bits of data. It's all just electrons.
I don't care.
You see, a computer doesn't play any emotional games with you. A computer has no need for your heart. It has no need for your emotional commitment. You just ask it the questions, it delivers the answers, and the rest of life is just goes by the board. Now, Cosmo maybe simply is not interested in the emotional bonding that goes on with human beings, that shabby, scruffy, messy stuff called emotions. Not for him, no thank you. Not interested. Which suggests to me, not to labor it too much, that he's probably the most vulnerable man in the world, but whoa, he'll never let you know it. Never in a million years will he let you know. He's decided never to be vulnerable. And with a computer as your friend, and the stuff I have in that, my character has in that room, you know, the mainframe stuff. If you have a mainframe computer, who needs friends?
There's a war out there, old friend. A world war. And it's not about who's got the most bullets. It's about who controls the information. What we see and hear, how we work, what we think. It's all about the information.
Cosmo has got the most powerful encryption he can find, but if the government develops the little black box that Dr. Janek is working on, as he's just about to deliver it, they would be able to read Cosmo's operations. So he has to prevent the government from getting that black box. Well, the best way to prevent the government from getting it is to take it yourself. Once he has it, he can then, he's achieved his purpose as far as his employers are concerned. He now has the ability to reach back into his past and continue the work that he started with Martin Bishop 25 years ago in college. He can now reach out and affect the world of information and the world of finance and the world in which we're most vulnerable, this invisible world of ones and zeros, that are the new weapons, they're the new technology, they're the new oil.
You've read about a few. One of the amazing things about this age to me is and why computers are key, and why this film can be important in terms of the subject matter it's dealing with. I'm sure many will deal with it after this, but this is the first one that I know of that's really attempted to deal on an entertainment level with, well, maybe war games, but with what's going to happen with information in our age, the power of it.
There are so many things in our lives that are susceptible to being compromised. Your bank accounts, your credit records, your income tax records. There's all kinds of documents about you in various files, government files, and city government and whatnot, and credit bureaus, and school records, military records, health records. Information can be used. Information about you is all too often used against you.
I think what's interesting is that issues of privacy, security, and information access are such in the world today that people like sneakers exist. That there are professions about, or that are professionals who either break into places or try to stop people from breaking into places. There are professionals who try to protect information or compromise information. So that tells you right there that we are living in a world that's very different than the one of 25 years ago. It's a world of information, and the issue of who controls this information and the issue of who has access to the information is absolutely important to all of us, just even as individuals.
In a surprise announcement, the Republican National Committee has revealed it is bankrupt. A spokesman for the party said they had plenty of money in their accounts last week, but today they just don't know where the money has gone. But not everybody's going begging. Amnesty International, Greenpeace, and the United Negro College Fund announced record earnings this week, due mostly to large anonymous donations.